like to see that in her. So, yeah, I like when people have like some back support from. I think it's really important.
Yeah. So from your standpoint, are you sort of thinking that there might be a super being, a supreme being out there who's all powerful, absolute, or is it just like you're certain, you're convinced logically and rationally? What's your position?
I'm not convinced, but it's more like I can't explain certain things, and therefore I just like there must be something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How about doing some, intellectual exercise and see where the truth should lie? Okay. So if there is no God, no creator, by default there should be nothing.
Why?
If there was no God, no creator, no creative force, nothing should exist.
I don't know. Like they did something.
Why? Okay.
Yeah.
Why does something exist at all in the first place? Why does something exist rather than nothing?
Yeah, like what I believe personally is like you had this like prehistoric soup, and then just with like.
No, that's the beginning of our the life on Earth.
Yeah.
But why does the cosmos exist?
Yeah.
How did the universe come?
Galaxies, nebulas.
I don't have a good answer to that.
Right. So if you think about it, now let's go backward from here to understand how things do operate. Science is fully based on causality, cause and effect. That's our foundation. One of the paradigms of science. It has to be. We can explain things because of this principle. You have effect because there is a cause. If something exists today, now, you and I, okay, we are energy or matter or any of this interconversion, right? If something exists today, there cannot be a time in the past where there was absolute nothingness.
So something should like
There has to be something
a start.
always, not a start. There has to be something always. Yeah?
How can you?
Yeah, because
that?
if you then have a point where there was absolutely nothing, then from absolute nothing you cannot get something, because nothing doesn't have energy, nothing doesn't have power, will, or consciousness. It cannot make or bring anything into existence. So if we are today in existence, there has to be always something. Now here's the problem.
On the roundabout.
But then I like to
As soon as you cross,
think that it's not like all unified in a certain person or power, but that's.
But we can now try to understand it. If something exists always, that means there is no beginning to this something. Whatever you say, there is ultimately something that is there which has no beginning. It's like this. Some people say, look, this universe, okay, maybe something created it. Let's call this something A of the alphabet. A, B, C, A. Question. Where did this A come from? Well, maybe B. So you can carry on this exercise like this, and you can see A, B, C, Z, and you can carry on. Ultimately, because something has to exist always, then this is never ending. This chain of creators for our universe is never ending.
But do you personally believe then that it's like all unified in a person or a God, or how? What do you think about it?
As Muslims, we believe there is a creator who is the creator of everything, who is eternally existing without any beginning, and will be everlasting with no end. Absolute in the attributes that the creator has.
Explain that then? Like
Okay, so we can go backwards from here now. So imagine now we'll talk about this universe that we have. Our universe, if it came from a creator who was from another creator and so on, we can ask, okay, does it really end or does it carry on? Which makes more sense? So if I say without an end, it doesn't make sense, and I'll explain to you how. This is the concept of infinity, right? Infinite causes for something. You've got a cup, maybe tea or coffee in your hand, right?
Coffee, yeah.
Coffee. Imagine now you want to give this to me on my hand. And to pass from your hand to my hand, there are infinite number of people it has to pass through. Infinite. Would it ever reach me?
Yeah, I've heard the theory before, like, if you see in distance and like if I have to go from my house to your house is 1 kilometer, but maybe it's 1.11, then I can never reach your house.
Yeah. So think about it. So you've got this cup, it needs to come to my hand, but there are infinite number of people. So it goes to the next person and the next person and the next person, it just carries on going. And there's never ending, infinite. It will never come to my hand.
Yeah, you're right.
Never. because there are infinite number of people in front of you and me. Our universe would never get created if there were infinite number of creators, because it will never come to a point where it's being created.
I get your point.
So that means the chain of creators for our universe, or the cause for our universe, it has to end somewhere, where before that there is no other creator. So our alphabet will eventually end somewhere, like Z, say, for example. Z is the first cause of this universe. So we say this first, or the last of all these causes, is the creator of our universe, before which there is none. Is the eternal with no beginning. Absolute, having existed always. Has to exist always. Why? Because this creator has to be always in existence. Otherwise the same question applies.
I get it.
Yeah.
It makes sense if you say it already.
So this creator must be absolute by attribute.
But it's just like too much for the mind to like think of something.
Yeah, but that's why we need to take step by step. Think, logically, sequentially, rationally,
But that's
and
like
then
exactly like describing what I'm feeling. Like there must be something that's like somewhere that has always been there and started it, but
so now you can see your logic and rationality comes to a conclusion. There has to be. It cannot be any other way. So if somebody says, look, our universe came from absolute nothingness, you will say, that is not rationally acceptable, intellectually acceptable. We would reject this concept. Why? Because from nothing, you get nothing. You cannot get something from nothing. To give you an example, a crude example. If I want to give you money, say £10, and I have no money in my wallet, and I have no banks, no friends, nothing, can I give you money? I can't give you money. So the concept of borrowing energy, like science is trying to be clever, it doesn't work because there is nowhere to borrow from.
It works if you study quantum physics.
Yeah. How much of quantum physics do we know today? Very little.
I can show you a whole study that I collected today, but that's not what I want to talk about.
Just one moment. How much of quantum physics do we know today? Very little. Even in quantum physics, here is the problem. Particles don't pop into existence from nothing. This is again what we call misleading information given to the layperson. Do you know or have heard of this very intelligent academic who wrote a book called The Universe from Nothing?
yeah, Stephen Hawking.
Not Stephen Hawking.
What was it then?
That's the time.
Do you know The Universe from Nothing?
He did the universe the universe everything.
The Universe from Nothing.
That was
Debated, Hamza Zosis debated as well. Professor Lawrence Krauss. I had opportunity of meeting him very briefly in a book signing occasion after his debate. After his lecture he gave on this very occasion. And I asked him, why are you deceiving people? If I remember correctly, it was a long time ago, right? So something along this line, when you know that you don't believe the universe came from nothing, it came from something. He said, I described that in my book, what is nothing. So his nothing is something. So he's being honest, but the title of his book and the presentation, people are misled. People think, yeah, the universe came from nothing, when his nothing is actually something. Yeah?
This has to start somewhere.
Yeah, he described something.
With quantum physics. Einstein himself, he was against quantum physics.
Can you get something from nothing?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I never did the experiment.
Then
How can I tell
there's
you
no
with
point
any
discussing this
certainty
anymore.
if it's possible or not?
There's no point talking to you at this very minute because you need to do the experiments. But we know for
did you
sure,
do the
without any experiments, because science, in the very axioms of science, is done without any experiments.
Isn't it still a question if we started like from nothing or if it's always been there? Like it's one of the first
Even in science,
but that's what
the
we call
axioms.
nothing. Like what is nothing?
No, but if nothing was something, we would call it as something.
Yeah,
But
that's also
nothing
true.
in reality doesn't even exist. It's a concept. That's the reason nothing can never create something. Because something that doesn't even exist cannot create.
So the particles in quantum physics doesn't come from nothing. They come from something.
Well, if you isolate the space, and this experiment has been done, if you completely isolate the space, then particles pop in and out of existence.
They come from something.
They simply, Well, you can say that.
Like,
It's not I can say that, that's the reality.
You can say that's reality, but you can prove that that's reality. You
Listen,
can only assume.
just one thing. Do you know what nothing is to the philosophers?
No, I want to make something perfectly clear. I'm not saying something can come from nothing or
Good.
not. What I'm saying is you can't say for
we can.
certain.
Yes, we can.
that
Yes,
we can.
No, you can't.
Okay.
That's
What is-
something
And this is
Okay.
exactly what I wanted to talk with the two of
I
you.
think that's just we don't know enough about it. Like, what is there? Like,
Okay,
exactly
let me
based
define
on
what
us?
nothing is.
That's exactly it. And
Okay.
we just don't
First of
know
all,
after today, I brought the study because last time you caught me off guard.
One
and
moment.
you too.
One moment. So you can talk to me if you want.
didn't even discuss
So
it last week.
Not
nothing,
last week. It
by
was quite a long time
definition,
ago.
is the absence of everything.
Yeah, but do we know everything?
ran away.
Like
Okay.
particles,
How so?
some kind of radiation, whatever.
That's something.
Whether we know or not,
Nothing, by definition,
I didn't
in
run
philosophy,
away. I
is the absence of anything and everything.
I
That's the
didn't
opposite of
exactly the best
something.
argument because I didn't bring
So
the
from
right
that
tools.
nothing, you cannot get something.
I don't run away
So all
from
this
it.
quantum physics, excuse doesn't work. Why? Because you cannot get even quantum particles.
Yeah, if there was
From
absolutely
nothing.
Yeah.
because it doesn't exist,
All
like I
you
said.
need is to learn
Yeah.
that.
So now we
Basically, you can
realize
explain
there
anything,
is going to be absolutely
with the
something in
Quran.
existence.
Exactly. Now the people who study
Always.
science, it's much
Has
harder
to be.
on them because they need to learn
What is
hundreds
the
and thousands of
qualities or
books to
characteristics
say all
or
the
properties
things
or
to
attributes
debunk
of
the
that
ideals
something
of
that
the
exists
religious
always
people, and
we
that's
can
the big
decipher?
difference. That is the problem.
It
with
has to be
arguing with a
something
religious
that is not
person.
limited and
that is
dependent
why
and finite.
I couldn't find the right
Because then
answers.
otherwise
But
it will
if I
share
bring
the
the
same
right
problems
tools
that we
and the
have.
right
Like,
studies, I can prove
in your
whatever I
religion,
want
do you
to.
believe, like you said, like God is
So
the
that is the
creator
reason
of
why I
the
didn't run
universe,
away.
of the earth?
And I
Do
got
you-
greatly
everything,
slandered by the Scdawah
Do
channel.
you think like
So,
God is
I'm
like,
going
is
to
it
talk to them.
man, woman, entity, ghost? Like
Interesting
how
question.
Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you how the Quran defines God, right? And see whether it makes sense to you. Let me bring this.
Is it something that's alive?
No, it's only
Is it
Something that Allah exists.
No, it's like,
okay.
Allah exists, and He's going to show you in the Quran how Allah defines or basically describes Himself.
no, like how they describe God or the creator. Like, is it a man, ghost, entity? How do they see the
I
creator?
have
a
the
good
Quran,
question.
but does it have a translation?
Is it something that's still present, or was it only there?
You see, the
got
existence
it?
of God
Okay.
is possible,
Yeah.
even though it's not certain.
Okay.
But the shape itself, and the rules that the God follows and the rules He imposes, that's the thing that you can't.
Assalamu alaikum,
That's
Sheikh.
very, very unlikely to
Yeah,
happen.
exactly.
Right.
That's what I wanted to part of the
You don't
things
need
that I
to
wanted
see
to
the
argue about.
translation, do you?
I want to show her.
Oh, I thought the same guy was still
Okay.
there.
Say He is Allah, God who is one. The Allah, the eternal refuge. He neither begets nor is born, nor is there Him any equivalent. There's nothing like unto God.
But you call it a hymn there, so
No,
it's like
in Arabic, you have to describe. There is no it in Arabic. It's either he or she. So Arabs are accustomed to describe in the language of God as a he rather than a she, because to them this is the usage.
everything was he.
Default was He.
It doesn't mean God is a male or a female. So can you get this back again? Yeah. Just give me another translation. I want to show her something interesting on this very thing.
No, but then you personally, just how do you see?
Yeah. Other translations? Give me another translation. So God is the one and only, the unique, the one who is absolute, eternal. Everything depends on Him. He's independent of any need, but everyone needs Him. Not born, doesn't produce any children. And
Do you like see him as a human sort? Like,
No, it's not. It's unlike anything.
it's not made of
So
flesh.
Allah says
Okay.
in the Quran, "Laysa
so
kamithlihi
if God is one and only and unique, because this is what ahad means, one and unique, and being the one which is totally independent, self-sufficient, absolute. If you are one and self-sufficient, of course you can't have a father or a mother or any of these offsprings, because you won't be one anymore. You won't be self-sufficient anymore. So this is how it logically follows that he is not someone who is born or someone who produces anything or gives birth to anything.
But do you see it as a person, like it? At the
No,
beginning?
no. And then it continues, there's nothing co-equal like unto him. There's nothing like him. Quran says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is nothing like unto the likeness of God. Nothing like unto the likeness of God. Totally unlike. So the creator is totally unlike the creation. So he's not a man or a woman or a tree or a stone, anything, but creator is one who is the originator of everything. the one who is alive.
Do you have like an image of it? Could you?
No.
Any
image that you have, it's not God.
No, exactly, because how? Yeah.
He's unlike the creation, so we cannot comprehend how God is or imagine Him.
More like a concept.
Yeah, but we understand that God exists, and there is nothing like unto God. For example, if I showed you, look, let me show you this. You've never seen it before. They say, oh, okay. Then you know that this is a unique form to it. God is unique in every sense. He's unlike the creation. So people have fallen into this error of thinking God is like a man or a woman or a tree or a creation.
I don't think.
People have in the past, they've likened God to be like a man. God is like a man with a long beard, white, and sitting on a throne. Yeah,
that's more like Poseidon and Zeus from the Greek mythology.
And in Greek mythology, in Christian traditions, and so on and so forth, people have pictured God like this. So in Islam, God is totally unique and unlike His creation. But the Quran confirms, وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. He is the one who hears and sees. That means God has attributes. Yeah, God is not some abstract entity.
Yes, senses.
He's not a deity of deism where He's created and He left everything alone and He's not bothered or cared. No, God is someone who has attributes. He created and He has this relational attributes with His creation. He interacts with the creation. He creates and He's merciful to them. He's just to His creation. He is forgiving His creation when they do something wrong. So in Islam, if you look at this concept, your heart and your mind will say, yes, if there is a creator, this creator has to be just. Has to be just. This creator cannot just say to one nation, oh, I am like this, like a monkey, and I am like this or like that. And there has to be continuous uniformity of this message, consistency of the message, consistency. And that's why the Quran reminds us with the past nations of the prophets and messengers that were sent before. It's a reminder, look, God sent to them, worship God, worship Allah, and wajtanibut taghut, and stay away, shun, resist the worship of false gods and false ideas of creators. So your heart, as you know, longs for submitting and surrendering and reverence to someone. If it's not directed to God, it will be directed to something else, like to a musician or a music star or a pop star or a footballer or something, or your own desires. People have these feelings of reverence and gratitude to something. If it's not directed to God, it goes somewhere else. And that's why God is saying, no, don't make your own desires as God. Don't worship the creation, but worship the one who created you. Worship the one who created you and the one who those before you, so that you may be muttaqoon, so that you may be pious, so that you be God conscious, because God wants us to know Him. He didn't create us like angels where you have no choice. Angels don't disobey God. We don't believe in Satan as a fallen angel. It doesn't make sense. Angels don't have any disobedience, no free will. But He created us with a free will. With a free will, you can say, yes, I accept you, and I acknowledge you, and I choose you as and I submit to you and surrender to you. This is what Islam is. This sincere recognition of your own self, and to surrender your will to the will of the one true God, that makes you a Muslim or a Muslimah. Anyone who does that is a Muslim. So over the time and in centuries, every individual who did this, humbly, willingly and sincerely, they humbled themselves to God and surrendered their will to God, they were Muslims. So you would not be then surprised if we said Jesus was a Muslim, Moses was a Muslim, Abraham was a Muslim, Solomon was a Muslim, because that's the state of submission. Islam is not a new thing that people often mistake for. Islam is the continuation of the same message of God, but the finality of that message through the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Finality of this message. God has, in His wisdom, sent prophets and messengers throughout times, but He sent now a universal messenger with universal message within the Quran and the teaching of the Prophet, that it is now sufficient for all times and all places. You don't need another prophet or a messenger to come to guide us. Our role and responsibility is simply to look into the life of this Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, examine his life, examine the message that He's brought, the Quran, and then accept it or reject it. That's the role of the mind. One of the primary role of the mind is to understand that we are a creation of God, and then find His message of guidance and submit to that guidance. Because do you really think that God created us in vain, in mere play, in jest, for no reason? Does it make any sense? He's created this universe in so much precision in the sense that even they're like so precise to the 22nd decimal places. We're talking about universal constants, Planck's constants, gravitational constants, and so on. So precise in their harmony. The way that we are constructed. I mean, when we have a bleeding, a cut here somewhere and there, how there's a meshwork formed by fibrin and fibrinogen and all these platelets, and amazing. But instead of thanking God for giving us life and to sustain it, we say He doesn't exist. So we should really come to our natural response. Do you know what natural response should be? Let me give you an analogy first. Now you've talking to me, you think, okay, this guy, maybe not that so bad, right? So we were walking past there, and God forbid, a lorry hit me, right? A lorry hits me, and I'm on the ground, a truck. I'm bleeding, and you thought, let me take you to the hospital, because you're a caring individual. You took me to the hospital. It may not be in this country, somewhere else, where they needed blood and your blood matched and you gave me blood to save my life. My kidney was failing. You gave one of your kidney to save me. I didn't know any of this. I wake up a long time later and I see you sitting there in front of me. And the nurse tells me all that story. What would my natural response to you? Say, get lost, I didn't want any of that? Should I not at least say thank you? That's the natural response of gratitude that I have for you, for what you've done to save me. God has given us the life. He's given me whole of my blood circulation system and the heart. He's given me 2 kidneys, and yet we are not grateful to Him. Worship is to show gratitude to our Creator. This is the natural response. It is not something that He needs. Does God need our prayers? Does God need our worship? We need to be grateful to God for what He has given us. If we are able to do this, we will be successful in this life and we'll be successful in the hereafter, because God did not create us in vain. He's created us for a purpose, to use our mind to follow His guidance. Because if you think that the person who's here in this life, they use their free will to do good and to do evil, and both the results going to be the same, they end up dying the same, and the worms comes and eats them, and that's it. Where is the justice? Where is the justice for the wicked who raped and murdered and oppressed people and animals and the environment? Where is the reward for the one who was kind and good and patient and helping and charitable? Where is the reward? Where is justice? Justice itself demands there should be a day of judgment. Who's going to judge? The one who created this world and the one who will create the next world and set up the justice. So in the day of judgment, how are we going to say, God, yes, I fulfill my duty that you created for, when I didn't even know what I'm supposed to do? You go to an exam and you don't even know what exam it is, expecting that you're going to do well in the exams. Biochemistry. Do you know biochemistry? Yeah. Okay. What about trigonometry? You know trigonometry? Yeah, good. But there might be a subject that you don't even know. Quantum physics, maybe. I don't know much about it. Yeah. And I cannot expect that I'm going to do good on quantum mechanics. I didn't even know it was an exam for quantum mechanics. I would not expect to pass. And at the end of the day, I would say, look, that's okay, that's life. No. It would be foolish of me to not to prepare for the exams if that was indeed an exam which is so important. If this life is created by God and God has given us a reason to know Him, to submit and surrender to Him, to love Him, and to look after the creation. And then I didn't know any of that. Instead, I just followed my wishes and my desires and my whims, and I did whatever I wanted to do. I followed my whims, and I was a bad person in the sense that if someone said that, I have power and wealth and I have means to do that. So I'm going to take you, your land, your family, your business and everything. because that makes me happy. Or I'm going to take your wife and your sister as my sexual pleasure because I have the means to do that. I'm going to exploit the family. I'm going to destroy London if I want to, if I had the power, because I don't like Londoners. Some people do that. You see, they have crazy mentality of what? This selfish need, they have this greed. Brazilian drug lords, for example, you know what they do. Yeah? So, and then I live like a king and I die like a king. Where is the justice?
But how then, where did that start? Like that they became evil and those kind of things?
Very good question. When God created us, He gave us the free will so that we can choose between the good and the bad, and He showed us the good and the bad. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. He inspired within us, the good and the bad. Yeah? And Allah says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Successful is the one who has purified himself or herself. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. And the one who is totally lost is the one who's, didn't do it well, didn't look after itself. So Allah says He has shown إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. He has shown you the two ways, the good and the bad. Whether you are grateful or ungrateful. Look at the mercy of Allah, of God. Whether you are grateful or ungrateful doesn't matter. He has shown you the two ways. So if God has shown us the good and the bad, the ways that we should do and not do, then the accountability is going to be on our shoulders. We will be responsible.
If you're born into, let's say, bad or poor environment, and your parents are criminal, and all your friends, do you really stand a chance in life?
Yes. That is why God doesn't only leave people alone. He sends prophets and messengers. And what do they do, prophets and messengers? What is their role?
All of them, their duty is to convey the message of God. So if the people are lost, if they have misunderstanding or anything, they came to convey the message of God to them, to tell them this is good and this is bad. The good you should increase the good deeds that you do, and you should stay away from the evil deeds. So they came, even though, so Allah said in the Quran, لكي لا يكون للناس حجة بعد الرسل. So the people, they will have for example, no evidence against that in the day of judgment, when Allah is bringing them the evidence. He will say, I have sent messengers, and there is a lot, and the final message of Allah is the Quran. So it's an eternal message of Allah, and it's still here, and it's still approachable by many people, and Allah told all of us to ponder upon the Quran. Then that's why Allah said in the Quran, in the beginning of the Quran, it is guidance for those who seeks piety. So if you are truthful, you want to find the truth, that the answers are in the Quran. That's how it's the eternal message of Allah.
Just as like a thought experiment, let's use your example from the Brazilian drug lord.
Sorry, a second.
Your example from the Brazilian drug lord. If you're born in his family or in a really bad Brazilian neighborhood like the favelas there, and you say like you send messages, but do you think these messages even reach those people there?
Okay. So there's two points to this question. Whether the true message of God reaches people to be accountable or not. And the other thing is, do people have access to this message? Okay? Today, by the virtue of information around the internet, World Wide Web and other social media and so on, information is available at our fingertips. Okay? You don't have to go to a mosque to pick up a copy of the Quran. You can just have it on your phone and it's there in your language. Yeah? The Quran and its interpretation and its exegesis, the sayings of the Prophet, the Hadith, the books translated even in your languages, and the explanation of it. It's very difficult not to be aware and be having access to the information. Okay, so that's one thing about the reality. But it may be true still. There are certain times and certain places people do not have access to this message. Now Allah says very clearly, He does not punish a nation, any nation, unless He sends them a guide, a warner. So if the message did not reach them, they would not be punished because they have not reached the message. This is from the mercy and justice of God. So in the past, where let's say some messengers were sent, but there are still the tribes, for some reason they haven't reached the message, they will not be punished. But one thing that God has given them though, which they should have used, if they haven't used this, they will be accountable. In one of the chapters in the Quran, Surah Al-Mulk, Allah talks about there will be a group of people dragged by chains by the angels of hellfire to the hellfire, because there is a place in the afterlife, either heaven or hell. Yeah? those who deserve to go to hellfire, they will go. Because God is merciful. He doesn't just put people in hellfire. From His justice, that they will go to hellfire. Those people who are dragged into hellfire, they will be asked, Alam ya'tikum nadhir? Did they not come to you messengers, prophets, warners?
Really, completely different question. How do you value like the basic court system and justice system we have in like England, Western world? Because you say like the final judgment is your judgment day, and that's when you get
but
judged
there are lots of opportunities beforehand for someone to reflect, mend their ways. So let me give you some examples, and just to finish this example about the Quran in Surah Al-Mulk. When those people are dragged and they were asked by the gatekeepers, the angels, did there not come to you any messengers, any warners? Alam ya'tikum nadhir? Did not come to you any warners? They will say, قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء. They said, yes, they came, but we belied them, we denied them, we rejected them. But then they will confess. So God is giving us information of the future. What the discussion that these people are having. They will then say, وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. If we had listened to the prophets and messengers and warners, or, this is the key point, used our aql, the intellect, the intelligence, we would not have ended in this place. To give you an example of how the intellect is guided throughout constantly, but people miss the opportunity from their own self. Let's say a worshipper of an idol is worshipping an idol, concentrating and meditating. Okay, it's in front of him. He's made an idol with gold or whatever, right? A statue. A dog comes along, lifts is one of the left or right leg, hind legs, and urinates on the idol. The worshipper sees that and he gets angry that God defiled my God, the dog defiled my God. He runs after the dog. As he is running, suddenly came to his mind, what am I doing? My God couldn't even protect himself or herself from the defilement of a dog urinating. How can that be? How can I worship something which doesn't even have, so suddenly it clicked. There's an inspiration suddenly given.
Yes.
This was the spark of guidance from God at that moment. If that person stopped and realized, yeah, that's it, I should stop and reflect now. What am I worshipping? This is not worthy of worship. That would have been guidance. So God, Allah tells us, He inspires people, gives guidance and shows various ways, maybe in your dreams and so on and so forth, in your daily life.
Day-to-day things,
yeah. You have to then use your intellect that God has given you and then come back to the realization. That is why one of the things as Muslims do, this, it's like, say, the prescribed medicine that we take every day, 5 times a day, every day, is called the medicines of realization. We pray our obligatory prayers at least 5 times a day throughout the day. And in this prayer, we come, the moment we start initiating our prayer, one step closer and closer to reality, who we are, why we are here, and who is the one, our creator. So you say, Allahu Akbar. You say, Allah is the greatest. There's no other greater being than God. It's in a form. Allah is Akbar means He is the greater. There's nothing great. It's such that anything that you think is great is greater than that. That means He is the greatest. And you start by saying, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise and all glory, all gratitude to God, the Lord of all the worlds, everything that exists. So you are coming back to the realization that who is the Lord? The one, and what is the Lord? The one who creates, guides and sustains. Yeah? The Lord is the one who created you, guides you and sustains you. So you're saying all praise and thanks and glory for everything, that I'm still alive and breathing, I'm in good health. The Lord of the worlds. The next step you're saying, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. He is the one, God is the one who is most gracious, most merciful, the giver of mercy, the one who is source of mercy, the one who is most merciful. No one is merciful than Him. Why did you come to that realization? Because you thought, and you should understand, that God has given me all of this. It's not because God is obligated.
But it's like an open question. I don't know how you think about it, but don't you think that, for example, Muslims and Christians are actually like quite similar in what they believe?
Yeah.
But they just have
Very much similar. So
actually...
what made us different is what we can just quickly discuss. But there is the source of all of these religions and religious ideas and concepts was God and His prophets and messengers. But mankind started tampering with this message. To give you an example how mankind tampers and for what reason. This country has license for alcohol in pubs, yeah, free license, and they have license for you to buy cigarettes if you pay the tax. Tax is given as fine. Okay. Now imagine now the country's lawmakers who are going to pass a law in the parliament. They all agreed that they are going to stop production and consumption of alcohol and smoking. And this is what they agreed and passed a law. What's going to happen to the public? Uproar, uprise. They won't like it. They will want to overthrow the government. What? You're going to take away what we like? You know, what was enjoyment for us? It's going to be very difficult for the government to pass a law like that. And that's why they are failing to pass effective laws against smoking, for example. The only thing they're doing is, smoking causes cancer. Picture of a cancerous lung or something. It doesn't stop people from smoking.
Is it allowed to smoke in pubs here?
They stop. Okay, there are different measures. There are different measures, but it doesn't stop people from smoking.
No, but then don't you think in some way like that you should be able to choose yourself? I'm completely against smoking. Don't get me wrong, but like if you
people don't choose. People.
But then it's a lack of information, maybe, or
actually, I won't say it's a lack of information.
Would you allow me to make some questions of my own afterwards?
I don't think it's a lack of information. The reason why, the cigarette pack gives us the information. It's not lack of comprehension either. It says smoking causes cancer, smoking kills. So now I take this packet of cigarettes and I start reading it and I understand it. So information is received, information is analyzed and comprehended, but yet I don't act on it. So there's something else going on. In Islam, there are other mechanisms how to stop it. When Allah says stop, don't even approach alcohol, gambling and so on. Do you know in the very initial stages what happened? Because Arab society was drinking alcohol like the gallons, right? When this revelation came in a final form, they just opened up and broken all the barrels and containers. It was like, overflowing like a river flow on the grounds. That's how they described it. They were able to do that for other reasons, which science or lawmakers are not taking into account in consideration. But that's another discussion. So when this believer starts praying, just to finish with one more example maybe. So the reason why I'm saying God is merciful and beneficent is not because God is under obligation to provide me all of this. It's because He's merciful. He's merciful, not because He's obligated. And then I come to a stage, instead of another realization, Maliki Yawmiddin. He is the master and the owner and the king of the day of judgment. Yes, this is not just this life, there's a king of judgment. And now what am I going to do? The one who is the master and owner of the day of judgment, I say, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. You alone we worship and you alone we seek help and sustenance and for all our need. So we are now submitting and surrendering to Allah because we know no one can save us in the hereafter. Because God is the one who's going to judge us. He's the king, He's the judge, He's the master, the owner of the day of judgment. So this is how the believer comes close to realization throughout the day. So that this concept of being in reality keeps you in check. So imagine now you just prayed and then you're going about your lives, something comes in your mind, let me rob him. You realize, I just prayed and there's the next prayer coming. How can I rob him? I have no right. This is a major sin, to rob of something that I have no right. It's his property, his wealth. In fact, a law in an Islamic society will implement it, if it was implemented whole, that if I had no need for it and I stole that he hid something and protected it, my hand should be cut off. This is how grievous it is to violate the rights of others, to steal something from someone which has been protected like this from stealing. So my next prayer, thinking about the next prayer, because it's throughout the day, think, oh, I want to go and do something bad. Immediately will stop me thinking, I'm not going to do that, because I just stood in front of God. Next time I'm going to stand in front of God, what am I going to say? So this realization makes someone in check throughout the day. So the Brazilian drug lord should have had this opportunity of self-reflection, whatever belief they have, like, look, what if it was my brother, someone is killing the way I'm killing? I'm murdering and oppressing and raping and all that thing. What if it was my sister, what if it was my mother? They need to have this self-realization. And trust me, people have this self-realization. Unless you're totally a psychopath, which is totally out of your mind, then of course, you're beyond cure in that sense. You should be locked away because you're not right. But other people who are not this compulsive psychopath where they have means of reform. You can reform. And this is why you will be now at a shock to realize the concept in Islam, there is a concept of jihad of the nafs. There is a political jihad to fight and to expand and to open up lands where people can go and see Islam, because otherwise Islam will be not presented to them. This is how it used to be in the past. But there's other concept of jihad, is the struggle of your own against your own self to make you constantly better so that you are better with him or her or you, with your father or your mother, with your brother, with your sister, with the animals, with the environment. Constant struggle of being better and better, making you so much that uplifting you to be a noble person. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ is described as the one who is the uswatun hasana for us, the one who we can emulate as our perfect model. He showed us how to behave, how to be kind, how to be nice, how to be just, how to be interacting with others. So this is what we have to do. So I cannot just treat someone because he's black or he's white or he's fat or he's thin because he speaks another language. The Prophet said, none of that. There is no difference between a black and a white, or a white and a black, an Arab or a non-Arab, or vice versa. The only difference between us is the one who is more God conscious, more pious. Yep. So I can say, MashaAllah, very good that this brother or this sister, is being very close to Allah. I wish I was like that. But I cannot envy him because he's black, or demonize him or chastise him or put him down or put her down because they are not of the same skin color, of the same language, or all these things that people go under racism and so on. So Islam eliminated all of this. This is what you should expect from the religion of truth. There should be no room for this kind of racism and intolerance. If you don't want to believe in Islam, fine. That's up to you. That's up to you. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. Quran says to you, your religion, what you want to do. But the consequences is with you and your Lord in the hereafter. Yeah?
Yeah. I like your point. I agree with it. Yeah.
So I would like to, because we've talked enough, I want to bore you with other things, but I hope some of the things I said, you should, and I request you to reflect on them. Reflect and say, look, my heart and my soul searches the truth. If the truth is found in Islam, what is my obstacle? Why should I make an obstacle because the Prophet was an Arab? Why? Does that make me any better if he was an European or so on? No. God can send this message to anyone, to anywhere, with any language. He chose his final message to an area in Arabia, in the language of Arabic, which best suited the last message. And this is one of the things the Quran actually invites people to think and reflect. That if you think this Quran, this message, this book is not from God, then produce something like it. A challenge given to imitate the Quran. This is one of the main reasons of the divine authenticity argument of the Quran, that it is inimitable. But that's a discussion of another day, how objective it is. So this is a copy to you from our friends, free copy.
Nice.
Please read and reflect. And if you have any questions, you can ask your Muslim friends, neighbors, or come back in Speakerscorner and we can talk about it.
I have some in it.
Yeah. And there's some other leaflets that people have given you. Just very small, very brief. Do read about it.
What is this?
some leaflets talking about, this one is about the concept of God in Islam. So describing to you who God is or what God is and so on.
The other side now?
Yeah.
I basically know the other side because I'm like,
She is from the
I
other
wanted
side,
to learn
don't
about
worry.
their side.
The other side has always something else to say.
Of course.
Because it's mutable, it's changeable. Now, before I start to say anything, I want to tell you that I
So you
take
take care,
no
and
pleasure in
and
this.
God guide us
explanation.
closer and closer to the truth.
Thank
okay?
you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.
Thank you.
Mansur, right? Let me tell you something. I don't have any pleasure in...
Before you start the discussion, may I ask, what's the discussion about? Because I haven't invited you, and neither have you invited me. What's the discussion?
You don't have to invite
Like
anybody
you
on
wrote your homework for
Speakerscorner.
him to
Okay, but I need to know whether
I
this
did,
is.
and
I
I'll
need to know
explain why.
I need to know whether this is going to be an interesting
I need
discussion.
to tell you something. I assume that your faith comes from some traumatic experience in the past, and thus you are very linked personally to your faith. And I want to get something perfectly clear, that this is not personal.
Okay.
What I'm about to say, what I'm about to argue with you, is not an attack against you. It's not an attack against your person.
Okay.
Because
so that's
what you
the.
told me, you had some traumatic things.
So that's the
and
end of the discussion.
I don't want to make fun of that.
No, that's
and I
the-
don't
no,
want
no.
to
So that's the
make
end of the.
light
That's the end
that.
of the discussion.
Let
Let me
me
shake your hands.
That's not the end of the discussion. That's
Let me
just
tell
the
you.
introduction.
No. Let me tell you why.
No, that's just the introduction. Now let's get to the discussion.
One moment. Let me tell you why it's the end of the discussion.
Go ahead.
Because the moment you start discussing with me, you've already approached me with a bias and a false premise, false assumption. My religion, my belief, my faith is not based on any traumatic experience at all.
I didn't
So
say it was based. I
that's what-
said it was linked.
that's what you said. It is no linkage whatsoever, no correlation whatsoever with any traumatic experience. So because you come with a baggage of bias and prejudice, I would say, you've come to speak to the wrong person.
Thank
I
you.
think you need to clean your heart and start thinking differently. Maybe I should approach someone with a neutral ground.
No, I have to thank you for that.
So let's
I have-
end the discussion.
No, let's not end it. But
Okay,
I have to thank you because I will not
Anyone
feel
else
bad for
interested
it
to
anymore.
offload their baggage?
No,
They're
what I
more than
have
welcome.
to talk
Thank
to
you.
you
Thank
is
you.
about
What if you were dying from thirst and hunger? Would you give your iman up, your faith up, in order to survive? Probably not. Probably not. Because you'd rather die in hunger and thirst than give up your religion, right? This is how much we value our faith. It's priceless. Brothers and sisters, let me introduce you to Norway. This is a European country where the vast majority of people have become irreligious. There are 200,000 Muslims of a population of about 5 million, and most of these 200,000 Muslims have no idea how to explain Islam to their non-Muslim friends and neighbors. But that needs to change. Allah sent His messenger to call people to eternal success. And that is why Muslims in Norway are now establishing a masjid and Dawah center to enhance the Norwegian Dawah. But they cannot do this alone. We need to support them. If you donate to this cause, you will inshallah reap the rewards of thousands of Muslims coming back to Islam, and many of those will become du'at and invite to Islam. You will share in the reward for all those shahadas and good deeds to come, inshallah. So click the link and donate now and share the video for extra reward.